Thank you for listening to another episode of New England Horror Files podcast. Tonight we're going to be talking about the North Pond Hermit, otherwise known as Christopher Thomas Knight, who spent 27 summers in rural Maine, burglarizing the local community while living off-grid in the woods in basically a tent. This is just fascinating to me. I just started reading a little bit about this guy, and just the things that came up, I'm just like, wow. I'm like, just the psychology and the just kind of like it's just sparked a lot of questions. Like, where did this guy come from? Like, what's his situation? So anyone listening, this Christopher Thomas Knight, he was from Massachusetts. And 1986, he just drove up to Maine. He parked his car. He left his car. He took some basic stuff, some camping supplies, some basic, clothing, tools, whatever. And he set up shop in just the middle of the woods what was the town? I don't have it in front of me.
It's in the Belgrade Lakes region. But I believe the particular town was Rome, Maine. Now,
Rome, okay.
Yeah, to be clear, he was raised in Maine, and I believe he moved to Massachusetts at some point. But he was born and kind of raised in Maine, in Fairfield, Maine.
Just started burglarizing the local lake cabins and other dwellings in the area. So he was well hidden, but he was just a couple minutes walk from. It sounds like a little lake community type of thing. So I'd imagine that might be seasonal, or there's just people who aren't there throughout the week, and maybe they're there odd weekends or whatever it happens to be. So there's times when it's unoccupied and you can just kind of have at it.
Yeah, I guess that was one of his things, was that he would not burgle any houses that had knowingly had people in them or were full-time residents, or houses that people were in. These were summer camps, lake houses, on the pond area. They were not full-time occupied.
Yeah.
And to get a sense of where this is, so as we were researching this episode, I was like, oh, Hermit in Maine? Sure. He was up north, way far north in Maine. Of course he was, because, the great North Woods of Maine. Not a shocker. However, I discovered that the area that he was actually found is 20-ish miles northwest of Augusta. And Augusta's, the capital. He wasn't even in the, the Great North Wilderness. It's not even that far. I was shocked when I saw that.
Yeah, he was close. He was close enough, but I mean, I think Maine's pretty rural to begin with, so it's
it is. I mean, it
pretty
is
dense woods. I mean, you think about winters up there too. They can get pretty cold, which is kind of it's kind of something a lot of people have mentioned in relation to this guy. Is just how do you deal with? It was I think, if I didn't say it already, it was 27 years he spent living just off grid in a tent, very basic.
Yeah.
And,
never listen.
How do you do that?
In 27 years, Maine winters can get real effing cold. We're talking snow, ice, negative temperatures, negative 20.
Yeah, it gets very rough. Very
right. Rough. Oh God, yeah. Did not build a single fire because not a single fire.
And he said because he didn't want to draw any attention to himself. He didn't want to get caught. Didn't build a single fire in close to 30 years.
Right, but living outside.
Yeah, in a tent, not even in some sort of cabin or something.
No, I mean, I know he. So I guess he goes into the woods, reason unknown. And if I guess this guy comes from a family of very private family. They were very well read, but very private. They didn't make tons of money. But they, like I said, they were very well read. And again, reason unknown. Disappears at 20 years old into the woods and doesn't come out again for 27 years. So this guy was he was very, very smart, and he managed to do this. I mean, what he started doing was, I guess he worked as a locksmith at some point, and he figured out ways. This is discussed. There's a book. Is it Stranger in the Woods? Let me get it in front of my eyeballs. Is that the actual name of it? I didn't expect to start talking about this right this second, but I believe it's. Oh my god! Listen to me rambling. Hold on. The Stranger in the Woods, author Michael Finkel, um, discusses how he would he learned how to pick into these cabins and these camps, these cottages, without breaking anything. Like he would pick the lock, and he would
Yeah.
very meticulously, very carefully go in, and he would take, took a lot of books. I guess they found thousands or 1,000 books at his camp.
Yeah.
Propane,
He's an avid
food.
reader.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I guess
apparently
he.
what he was doing was he was going to bed early and he was waking up at around 3 a.m., right? Which is apparently the coldest part of the night, coldest
Right.
time. And he'd get up, he'd read, he'd walk around, he'd get active to kind of stay warm, you know,
Right.
which still to me, like even to hear that boggles my mind. But
I mean, if he had, if you have the proper stuff, like I know there's people who do winter camping, and if you have the proper gear, I mean, but even then, without a fire, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, he
yeah,
had a propane stove, which is how he cooked and whatever, but um, I don't think he had a propane heater, and even if he did, where would it go? He had, he lived in a tarp. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's a really fascinating story, and I'm sure, like, if you were to read the book, you could find some much more in depth. I guess by the time that he got caught, 27 years later. Oops, that was me hitting the microphone. By the time he got caught, 27 years later, um, I think some 500 reporters reached out to talk to him, and he only talked to this one person, besides law enforcement. But he didn't talk to any journalists or reporters
mm,
except for Michael Finkel, who wrote the book Stranger in the Woods. And I guess they talked for, a very long period of time. They talked for, I think he made several separate journeys to Maine. He lived in Montana, the journalist, um, and spent hours with him in jail. So now the thing about this is, like, I watched. There's something about this story that's just so, like, intriguing, but also the more you think about it and the more you learn about it, you're like, what the fuck?
hmm,
You know what I mean?
yeah. It keeps taking turns. It keeps taking
Yeah,
turns.
it's very layered. I remember hearing about this on a very surface level a few years ago, and I paid some attention to it. I didn't, and I remember there's some controversy about he should have been allowed to stay in the woods, and if he's been doing it this long, just let him be. And then there's all sorts of chatter about it, and the more, like, it's a very layered situation. Um, I guess the thing that gets me, there's a few things about this story that get me. So I guess he lived in this area. He set up his camp in this area where it's surrounded by boulders, so it's kind of like a natural um,
Naturally
shelter
hidden.
almost.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's very. I guess it's very hard to get to, and he's described as, by law enforcement and anyone who was out there with him after he got caught, as like moved like a jungle cat. You know what I mean? He was very, very soft on his feet. He was very graceful, very quiet, and he learned how to live in this environment. I guess everybody else had a lot of trouble getting there. Even deer had trouble walking there because it was so rocky. But I guess he really learned to adapt to the environment, um, which really helped him in that way.
I would have to say what stuck out to me was he's just kind of he said something to the effect of like he didn't like people. He didn't understand people. He didn't like interactions with people, this sort of
Mm,
thing, right? So I'm just like the willpower to take that and just okay, like you know what I mean? I don't like people that much either. You know what I'm saying?
right.
It's just like it kind of it kind of makes me laugh because I see people on Facebook and whatnot posting like, oh, something about how they can't stand people, blah blah blah, and this all whatever, and I'm just like, no 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 no, this guy can't
Really didn't.
stand people. He really does not like to be around people. All right,
No
you have
kidding.
no idea what you're talking about there, Susan.
Right, right.
Okay.
Well, it's true too because so much of the human experience is like you need to be around. You need community. You need interaction
Yeah,
with other people. Now,
yeah,
I guess they found that he has Asperger's syndrome,
yeah. That sounds about right.
something to that effect. Yeah, so it kind of, when you take that into account, and also when you take into account his family being very private, and speaking of his family, there's the interesting layer here of the family never filed a missing person report or never it never came up, I guess. Now, at least publicly. And it's funny as somebody mentioned that I think it was law enforcement said that that's just how that family was. They were very like very very private. They didn't get involved in things. Like it wasn't a bad situation, but it just was what it was.
27
So
years though, like you had to you got to wonder. I mean, did they know before? Did he tell them what he was doing? Did he like
right.
did he leave like periodically and like keep in touch with people at all?
Hmm. Like it makes you wonder. I mean, that's a long time. I think in 27 years he exchanged like one word with another human being by accident on a trail.
Yeah, there's a hiker coming walking by.
Yeah, yeah,
The guy.
yeah. Hey, how are you? And that's the end. Like that's crazy. I mean, I don't know. There is a certain like peace you can find in the woods. There really is. We were in the woods today. We're out scouting in the woods, and I'm sitting there for a little bit with one of my kids, and I'm trying to teach them to just be quiet and listen to the forest. And there really is there's a certain amount of peace you can find there, and it's I end up like craving it after a time. So I guess I could understand the tiniest bit of that, but at the same time it's I don't know, it's just this is such a fascinating story. And throughout this whole time it's what the interesting thing though is that it's not like so he's not speaking to other people, but he is going into these camps and these cabins, and he is interacting with other people's lives in a way.
Yeah,
Like he still is having. So most of these are summer seasonal. They varied, but they're seasonal generally. But there's still people going there. There's still people buying things. There's still when he's going into these houses and taking what he needs, if you will. And still, there's still that human presence there. He's in this community, this area where it's lakes, and if you know like the lake community thing, it's like you'll have the lake. Around the lake there's a bunch of whatever houses, seasonal houses, camps, hunting camps, cabins, cottages, whatever. And while they're not year round, they're still alive to a point. You know what I mean? Because people are still there. They go and they might perform property maintenance or whatever. There's still electricity in some cases. So he's still going and interacting in these places, and that was the thing. Now this is where I'm kind of like, oh, now first of all, this started in '86 is when he moved out there. So this
hmm
is the '80s. Things are very very different as far as like things. Like we don't even have internet at that point.
hmm
You know what I'm saying? There's no cell phones. It's if you were to go to Maine into the cabin. You know, there's nothing going on. You're literally, you are detached from the outside world in a way. But at the same time, you know, he is there, and they say that he would case places for a while to make sure that they were empty. But that comes with like a stalking sort of element.
Hmm.
And this is something I thought of. And when you watch, I watched a video by, it's on YouTube. Where are you? It's called "The Last True Hermit Survived Alone for 27 Years" by The Atlantic. It's a YouTube channel. I do this video where they talk to people, and they talk to a lot of people about it. It's actually a very eye-opening and very good video. However, the things that some of these people are saying, it's crazy how the comments run the gamut. But a lot of these people talk about, it freaked me out. I was scared. I didn't want to be there alone. Oh my God, there's someone in my house. I got video of him eating my chips. I was disgusted. Like, oh my God. Like, you have to think, like, if you know that somebody is, you know, breaking into your property to take something, you know, I've had my vehicle broken into more time, not broken into, but um, gone into more times than I can count. And every single time there's like this violation. You know what I mean? That somebody you didn't allow has gone into your space. It just messed with your space. You know what I mean? So while this guy is not, you know, he's not hurting anyone, he's not out to physically harm someone. That's not what he's doing. He still is casing the joint and then going in. You know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
there's definitely a certain amount of like, the word that comes to mind is creepiness. And I wonder if, as much as he, you know, wants to be away from people, does he still crave that connection in a way? Because there are ways to live in the wilderness that do not involve doing that. Do you know what I mean?
For sure, for sure.
So it's
Um,
just like it's very interesting in that way
yeah,
to me.
like I think like I said, the not liking people, the antisocial behavior, and then couple that with honestly the does like there's ways you could do it where you obviously have some smarts, you have some like know-how about you have some whatever. You could probably like just buy a piece of land, or even just like build up a piece of land like that somebody else. I don't know, there's other other options, but to go the route of
Hmm.
just constantly having to burglarize people, constantly
Right.
having to you know do that to stay alive, and to feed your own passions, your own interests, because it wasn't just food and necessities, it was books and
Hmm.
other things like that. But it was over 1,000 different incidents
Right.
in that time.
And
And I'm
here's,
imagining like some of them the same families, like same houses over multiple times,
oh yeah.
with like the same owners. And I'm sure like you got to think about like people probably move because of this, and like it changes hands, and it's probably like a lot of these cabins like change hands multiple times, these homes. You know
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. And it still keeps happening. And you know, on that note, now I don't know if okay, so I know how in retrospect, hindsight, and all that, we see things very differently than when it was happening, right? So it's easy for us to look back on 27 years and be like, well, blah 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 blah. But I could understand that maybe after 5 years or even 10 of a constant like, I'm missing X, Y, and Z. You know, this guy had so many cans of propane. If I lost a can of do you know how expensive propane is? Like, if I lost a whole can of propane, I would be like, police. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm imagining that there were a bunch of police reports, right? And that this was a problem over time because, you know, come 2013, there's this, um,
Sting
you know,
operation, yeah.
yeah, there's the game warden, Sergeant Terry Hughes is like, I'm going to get this guy. That's it. So First of all, what I do not understand is how they absolutely did not catch him before this time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? One, he's not far away. Two, he's got to be hitting the same places. I mean, I'm sure there was like some sort of range, but at the same time, like nobody had a like. I guess they did have. One woman mentioned how she did get surveillance after a point, and I don't know the year, but she put pictures of him in her house, like the surveillance of the guy of Christopher in the house, so that he would see it, but he still went into the house and took stuff.
Yeah, like there's just
Yeah,
something. There's something there, like this the mind of that person. There's, you know what I mean?
interestingly, in my own personal life, I know a person who's on the spectrum. Not quite like this, but they are on the spectrum and they absolutely love to take things
Interesting.
from yep. It's always been, and I'm like, what is up with this? Like, and it's not necessarily malicious. It's just it's very similar to this. It's very similar to like that. It's almost like I'm not well versed in that aspect of it, but I just found it very interesting to make those comparisons because I live with this on a very small scale, you know. Um, and now come to find out, this guy, you know, there. I wonder, is there? I know that maybe out of necessity, but again, out of necessity, it doesn't. You don't need to do this to like survive in the woods.
Yeah, there's some other need there. There's some other like thing you're
Yeah, yeah, because I mean,
the thrill of the high of doing that, or like you just maybe you feel smarter and superior to people, and maybe that's the part of not liking people and wanting to be with people. I don't know.
or
I'm
you
not
know,
a
there
fucking
was
doctor.
yeah, no shit. Well, there's the element of breaking in
I
without
just I
damaging
host a
things.
cheesy New England
Oh,
horror
shit.
podcast.
Yeah, you know what Turtle Boy said? If Judd Welcher's a doctor, so am I.
God.
Maybe you don't know that. Anyway,
Oh yes.
um, yeah. So there's a lot of very interesting psychology there, and I don't know. I also find it interesting that as well read as he was, he didn't seem to have the knowledge of actual like living. How do I say this? Not off grid, because off grid is one thing, but like bushcraft survival, if you will. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like,
yep.
and I get, you know, I would say he didn't want to damage the landscape, but I mean he did. You know, I've seen his camp. It's not or I've seen video of it. You know, obviously I haven't been there, but um you know, he was using regular materials to like live it. You know what I mean? Like, so
Mm.
I just I don't know, and I'm sure if I read the book, there would be a lot more there. So anyway, so let's fast forward to 27 years, 27 winters. God, that's insane. 27
Maine
winters,
winter.
27 Maine winters, exactly.
That's
um, finally, this Sergeant Terry Hughes and April, and I think it was like almost 27 years, like to the day that he disappeared and was caught. It was very, very close, I think. Let me see if I can. I don't have it here in front of me, but I believe it was like 27 years, like to the day. So eventually, Sergeant Terry Hughes is like, that's enough of this crap. I'm going to catch this guy. He sets up a camera in. There's a Pine Tree Camp, which was like a camp for. Um, it was a special kind of camp. And so he set up a thing in there. It goes off in the middle of the night. Hughes arrives, like, oh my God, I got you. And he gets the guy. He catches Christopher Knight. So as we, you know, go on, Christopher Knight is eventually sentenced to, he spends 7 months in jail. Um, he served most of that while awaiting sentencing. he had to pay restitution to the victims of his crimes. Um, and he goes into these programs, and he has to work and do all these things. Um, he describes his time in jail as like very difficult, which I can imagine. Not only like does jail is jail, but he just spent 27 years like not talking to people, and here he is getting arrested and put in jail. So when you watch, it's really interesting, the psychology of what these people are saying in the Atlantic video. And I don't have them right in front of me. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase. But they run the gamut. The responses run the gamut from like, he's got mental health issues and, we forgive him. Or I hate this guy, to I can't believe he did this. He creeped me out, to I saw him and he's ugly. It's like these responses run the gamut, like to like an almost sort of, awe and admiration for him doing that. And also maybe a sort of, I wish I could do that. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I could escape into the Maine woods and, it's
Yeah,
just,
I mean, for like the communities that he he stole from, obviously he didn't have a great reception there, but he had a cult following once people found out about him. He had, I think
oh
he had
yeah,
various social media and like fundraisers set up for him and that sort of thing, and like there's
yeah,
songs written about him, the North
yeah.
Pond Hermit, and
Oh yeah, there's
it's
like,
definitely like a main thing. Like he's a legend.
almost like, yeah, like a local legend.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
it's interesting. And I mean, of course, yeah, even people within the community were saying like, where like when these things started happening, there, people reached out and said, "I'll give you a room to rent. I'll give you a parcel of land that you can live on," like this sort of stuff.
Right.
In response to this, and still, like it's so that's what's so fascinating to me. All these details of just this, like the willpower involved with that sort of life, when
Mm-hmm.
it could honestly even probably be, you didn't have to do it that hard. Like you didn't have to do it the hard way. It's not for me. I'm not saying like, oh, wagging my finger. It's just like, just thinking about someone's situation. Like it just takes a certain amount of just wanting to do that. And I just like, I can't even wrap my head around it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, that's
And I want
true.
to, I want to move off grid and live off the land, but I'm not doing it like that.
No kidding, right?
I'll
I
build a
know.
house.
Same here.
I'll,
I'm like,
I'll build buildings.
can we at least have an RV? Like,
Yeah, right?
can I at least have a car? Like,
Right? A
I mean,
trailer,
yeah. I
converted storage unit, or
like,
storage container.
yeah, no kidding. At least something. Like, I guess, and I say like, I'm shocked that nobody. I mean, I guess if you, I am shocked that they didn't find him. Like,
I
in
am
no,
too.
like,
That
I
really
don't.
is surprising to just be like, he's obviously in close proximity to these areas. Like,
Right.
we haven't put out, like, we haven't done a manhunt, like,
But I guess at the time, I wonder if like they didn't realize that it was a hermit living in the woods, because that, you think about that, but that's not commonplace these
yeah.
days. Maybe in like the 1700s, sure, but nowadays, but at the same time, no one ever flew a helicopter over there,
Yeah, it's hard to
like
say. And
ever.
the other thing with that is like, I don't really understand like if there's um like how the dynamics of the town and how the local law enforcement's funded, and like, are they
Right, right.
underfunded? Is it like a one guy at the station, we got a deputy that comes in on weekends when he's drunk type thing, like, you know what I
Well,
mean? Like, I have no idea. Is there the resources there? Is there the funds allocated to?
well, that's the thing, is that the guy who finally caught him was a game warden. He wasn't. He was a Maine state game warden. He wasn't like a local. I mean, does Rome, Maine even have police? Like, they might
Yeah.
not. There's towns in Maine that are like, not incorporated. They're just there. It's I mean, this population of that area is 1,148 in 2020.
Yeah.
As a Belgrade Lakes resort area. But that's like a resort area. It's not, you know, it's not like a town really. I mean, I don't know. I don't know all these things either exactly, but it's still it's a very small area. And again, if you know, like mostly, usually, at least here in Vermont and often in Maine, when you have a lake, you have like property around it, and it's in an association. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of how that goes. It's not even. It's different. It's a very different setup.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't
So
know. If you have small populations like that, and like I don't know, money for the town budget's coming from property tax. There's not much going in it. So yeah, it could very well be, especially if it ended up being like a state um, officer, the warden,
right,
that ended up kind of doing that. So yeah, that's likely an issue, like a reason that.
yeah, part of it.
Yeah, it's crazy though, and yeah, like they got to, I guess to for them it just like, but after all those years, you have to see like a pattern. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's like
Right.
somebody working at the police station that's been there, since the beginning or close to it. Be like, all right, every off season, these communities get broken into. Like something's, I don't know. It's
Something's up.
even at that, I feel like it's enough of a priority to be for law enforcement. But who am I to say?
No shit. Right. Well, also too, like it seems like as advancements in technology maybe improved, it it would have made it more difficult for Christopher to do this, even in a place like Maine. I mean, I shouldn't say Maine, but a place like the rural Maine, because even out there you're less likely to have signal, you're less likely to have cell service. It's less traveled. It's not like a busy city area. It's very different, So, but as although did nobody have cameras? Like I know some people mentioned it, but like we had security cameras in the '90s. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I mean, I guess one of his things was to make it seem like it wasn't obvious necessarily. It would be more of a thing like, did I leave that there? Or, where's the blah, blah, blah? Or like, although one woman recalls a situation where they bought a bunch of food, went to the camp, filled the fridge, and then returned like, a couple days later, whatever. She goes to the fridge, opens the fridge, everything's gone. And she had to like triple take it, like, where's the food? Like I still have to say, and there's difference. I've seen varying as I read like the comments, because I'm always reading the comments. Like I'm reading the comments on these videos and whatever Facebook posts, and some people are very much like, no, he has to pay for his crimes, which he did, and he immediately when he was arrested, he admitted shame. He was knew what he did was wrong. Um, and I gotta say, like, if you don't know, again, in hindsight, we know today that it was him and he's not trying to hurt anyone. But I mean, what must that be like to be at your camp or your cabin or in this neighborhood or this area where this is happening and there's some sort of peeping Tom, prowler, burglar, home invader? You don't know. You know what I mean? You just know that something's messed up. Somebody's been in your house. You're missing things. Maybe they start talking. Your neighbor's missing things. What is that? What is that like? Like that can't be. That's not comforting. So
Yeah,
even
not at
you know
all.
what I'm saying? So on the one hand, I understand. Like I said, every time someone's broken into my car, it used to happen frequently when I lived in crazy ass Rhode Island. Although it's happened here too. Um, Actually, it might have happened more here than it has back home. But anyway, every time that happens, it feels like such a violation. That's not even my home. That's my car. You know what I mean? That's just my vehicle. But I can't imagine if you knew someone was in your house going through your stuff and taking your stuff. So, I mean, at the time, how do they know he's not hurting anyone? It takes time to build that, chain of events and, um, similar, what's the word I'm looking for? Pattern of behavior. They don't know at the time. So I guess to a point, I can kind of understand the people who are angry about him.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I totally get it. I mean, it's
Mm,
definitely creepy. You know what I mean?
mm.
If I had a home that was happening to, like I'd be like off my fucking just off, dude. Just
No
to
kidding.
knowing that that's a threat, knowing that like someone's been in your house, someone's been like scoping your house out, and they're smart
Right.
enough to like avoid capture. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
that's
have
creepy.
like because he's there might be cameras, but I'm sure like he's like light on his feet. He's in the woods. He's kind of watching. I'd imagine during the day. Like
Right.
he's very his senses are probably very sharp to like compared to other people. So he sees who's coming and going, like what people are doing. If like a new camera system goes up, he's probably going to see the people come in and do it. You know what I
Oh yeah,
mean?
yeah,
That
good
sort of
point.
thing. I
Right,
don't
right.
know. This is just my thought. I'm just kind of like spitballing. I'm just kind of talking, bouncing ideas, whatever.
No, and I guess,
But
he changed his appearance in different ways over the years and, versus like, he would be clean shaven one day, then he'd grow out the beard, and then he would, like to purposely change his appearance. So like
yeah,
there's definitely, as we were talking about this episode, I'm like, why is this horrifying? Because everything we talk about horrifying. So I feel like that aspect of the situation is horrifying. Here's a person who is, very calculating,
yeah.
very, like I
They
said,
have a very
stalkerish.
they have a very like criminal mindset.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and I read something that mentioned this, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been the author, and I don't want to misquote, so I'm just saying my opinion. Um, there are people that use that for bad, that kind of thing for bad. This guy just happened to not use it to hurt people, but still, he's on the periphery, like just like in his life, living in the woods, on the periphery of this area. He's also like living on the periphery of someone like these people's lives in a way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And still has that calculating sort of stalkerish sort of like knows he's doing something wrong but did it anyway. Do you know what I mean? So like it's just a very interesting like I mean, gosh, I swear, if somebody drives by me and I think they drove by me twice, if I'm like in my yard or something, I will get all bent out of shape. You know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
cannot even imagine being in a situation where somebody is actually watching you, like in that way. That is horrifying in my opinion. I mean, you know, he didn't do it for, he didn't hurt people, so like that, but we don't know that until it's over, you know what I mean? Or not we, they.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still not okay. Like he didn't hurt people, but like the level of crime committed to by this
Right.
woman
Oh
was
no.
it's just like it's staggering.
I don't yeah, I don't think that it's okay. I don't think it's okay to do stuff like that. Like it, aside from the, wanting to get away from civilization, and I don't believe that he was so poor that he couldn't afford to eat. I don't think it was that kind of situation.
Hmm.
Even if he was though, there are resources, you know what I mean? Like that don't involve this level. Now, and what does this say about his upbringing? By all accounts, his upbringing was positive. It wasn't. bad. He's described as very poetic, one of the most well-spoken individuals that you know this. Yeah, I think it was the police officer has ever encountered. I think I said that
Yeah.
earlier, but um, so it's not like
It's all the reading. It's all the reading because he's
Oh
having
yeah,
all this input and like no social interaction for all those years, and then he's gives a
right,
police statement or whatever. He speaks to the officers and whoever he's got to speak with.
right. Oh
That's
yeah, reading will do that. Reading
that's
is one of the.
but it's like for not having spoken to anybody in 30 years. That's pretty impressive.
No shit.
So who is it? Mike? What's the guy's name? Michael Finkel? Is that correct? The reporter.
Yes, yes, the writer.
So, yeah, I want to jump into that a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
I haven't read the book he wrote. We're gonna
I
link it.
haven't. I haven't either.
Maybe if we feel like it, maybe go fuck yourself.
The shot.
We'll see.
No, what? No, I'm just kidding. We'll link the book.
I'm just kidding. We'll link the fucking.
How many did we just roll in right there? Anyway.
We're always referencing offbeat movies,
Mm-hmm.
random stuff. Anyways,
Comment down below what we just quoted. Anywho, not that we ever get that many comments, but whatever, it's fine.
hey, not with that fucking attitude.
Listen, buddy. Just saying it like it is, all right? Oh, here's where, okay, so downeast.com, Downeast Magazine. Sidebar, I am always tickled by the fact that there's a place in Maine called Downeast, Maine, but whatever. So this is a Q&A with the Stranger in the Woods author, Michael Finkel. And he says some 500 journalists attempted to contact him. Michael Finkel believes that he is the only one to whom Knight replied. Over 2 months after Knight answered Finkel's handwritten letter, the author made 4 trips from his home in Montana to Maine, visiting Knight in jail. Over 2 months, the pair sat for 9-hour-long conversations as Knight, at times eloquently, at times combatively, answered Finkel's questions about his self-imposed solitude, his motivation, his survival strategies during 27 Maine winters without a fire. After Knight's release, yeah, no shit, it's still like, I'm cold just talking about it. After Knight's release, Finkel made 3 more reporting trips to Maine, interviewing law enforcement officers, talking to Knight's victims and childhood acquaintances, and seeking out Knight for one last emotional meeting. We talked to Finkel about his reporting process, why the story could have only happened in Maine, and his complex relationship with the North Pond Hermit. I actually really want to read this book. Unfortunately, I was unable to read it before we did this episode. It's called The Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Story of the Last True Hermit by Michael Finkel. I definitely want to read that. We will link it below, but the author says a lot of interesting things, like the way that he thinks about things is very interesting.
How's that?
I'm just looking. I read this earlier, but I want to look it over again. Yeah. So the author was, skied a lot in Maine, hiked the Appalachian Trail, camped in Acadia National Park. Outdoor people went. Oh my gosh, computer. What happened? I'm sorry, my computer distracted me. Okay, went to Maine a lot. So he just kind of connected with him in that way. And he references that he says, the question is, so what prompted such a fascination that it kept you returning to Maine? His response is, I came across the story from the Kennebec Journal about a guy who was arrested, claims he spent 27 years in the wood. That by itself got into my head, but really it was the fact that Knight stole thousands of books. My 2 favorite things in the world are spending time in the wilderness and reading, and this guy was the world champion of both. At the time I learned about Knight, I had 3 kids who were really small and loud and demanding of my time. I could barely read, barely spend any time in the woods. So I think Knight's story just hit me in a very deep way. I could totally resonate with that because your kids do not let you do anything.
That's for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll be literally like, guys, I need to read because I'm in college right now, right? So I have to read like I don't even know how many astronomical amount of pages a day or week that I have to read. I'd be like, okay, kids, I'm putting in my headphones. Leave me alone. I'll have the headphones in for not 3 minutes, and I hear, Mom, dude.
No kidding.
Yeah. So he refers to, the story is literally unbelievable. The people who live on North Pond, who would seem to have the most knowledge about it, believed it the least. And if you know my background, the question is, how skeptical were you at first? He responds with, and if you know my background, you know that I got fired from New York Times. Oh, rewind that because that's not relevant. Back up. How skeptical were you at first? Before I met Knight, I talked to many who said it's clearly bullshit. There's no way someone can survive more than a month in the Maine woods in winter with a fire and without a fire. It's just not believable. I know, right? Can you
That's
imagine
crazy.
doing that with a fire? It's hard with a fire. I mean, without one.
Yeah, no kidding. Here's what stood out to me. He says, how do you hope readers will come away thinking about Night? People who have lived alone, and we're talking about maybe 1/100% of the population. They're like this rare trait that's been passed down through human civilization, and yet they've had this crazily profound effect on the world. Let's just start with Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus. All of them had this desire to go off by themselves for long periods of time, even 40 days, which is what Jesus spent in the Judean desert. That's probably 39 and a half more days than most people. Most people today never ever spend a day alone in their entire lives. It's crazy. When I read other people's accounts of hermitage, they're all different, but they have deep similarities, and it sort of makes me jealous on some level. I'm sort of amazed by the profoundness of the experience. So if you read this book and dislike Night, that's a perfectly fine reaction. And if you read the book and find yourself a bit jealous, that's also a fine reaction. I don't shy from saying that he tortured some people who had every right to have a peaceful vacation a couple times a year. He tortured some of those people. He's not an angel. But there's something he did that I don't think you can have no reaction to. I think you can be angry. I think you can be impressed. But I don't think you can be like, that's boring. You have to do some work on your own. You have to read it and see how you feel when you close the book on it.
Mm,
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling, you know?
yeah, yeah, that's true. I'm kind of just kind of yeah. I don't I don't know. I've shared what I think, but I feel the same. It's like this is a fascinating story. And when you really just get into it, it just there's so many layers to it. And then I have more questions. You know what I mean?
Yep.